Hello again, everyone. Hope your day's kicked off as expected. If not, I hope it corrects itself. Continuing on in Exodus this morning. Still in chapter 3. Last time we saw that Moses had spotted the burning bush. He stopped and he turned and he looked to the side, and God spoke. Told him to come closer. Take off his shoes. He's on holy ground. He says, I got a word for you, Moses. And he begins to tell him that he has heard the groans of his people, the Israelites back in Egypt. And his desire is for Moses to go back and lead the people out of the land. Tells him it's time to go home. The place he had run from 40 years earlier. You got to go back. It's time. And we see here that Moses begins with a series of excuses why he can't do what God has called him to do. First one is, well, you tell me I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk to the elders. Who am I going to tell them who sent me? I'm just going to show up there. And I'm not saying that in a worldly mindset that Moses' excuses were unfounded. It's a legitimate question. Who am I going to tell them who sent me? I'm just going to show up. I hadn't been there in 40 years. They're going to know who I am, and I'm going to say, I'm going to lead you out of this land. It's a legitimate question. Legitimate concern. Who am I going to say sent me? And God responds, tell them that I am sent you. I am who I am. Yahweh, unspeakable God, the one true God. Tell them that I sent you. Here's my name. They'll know. They'll know. So, God proceeds to tell him, and this is the the really tricky part here. He tells him, look, go back. You're going to speak to the elders. You're going to tell them what I said. They're going to believe you, and they're going to follow you. Then he tells him, you're going to go talk to Pharaoh, and he's not going to believe you, and he's going to reject everything you say. So, God tells Moses, look, I got two things here. One, you're going to succeed at, and the other, you're going to fail at. It's not going to work. You're going to tell Pharaoh everything I tell you to tell him, and he's not going to listen to you. You're going to fail. You're going to think you failed. But what I'm telling you is that if you go ahead and do it, you're going to succeed. Isn't that, I would say, isn't that the number one reason? I don't know know that it's the number one reason, but it's high up there. Why we don't do what God calls us to do. The number one reason is that we're fallen and stubborn and sinful people. We worry about self more than we worry about anything else, that we don't do what God calls us to do. But I'll say it ranks up there pretty high is fear. We all have this ingrained in us fear of failure. We have a fear of failure, which means that we preconceive in our mind how something's supposed to happen. And when it doesn't happen that way, then we failed. That's not how God views failure. That's how we view failure. How does God view failure? If you're obedient, he views it as your victory. That's what he's telling Moses here. You're going to fail, but you're going to succeed. That's the paradox that is our God, the God we serve. You know, you think about it. Think about when Paul in Ephesians is talking about our past life. You know, you were dead in your transgressions. Well, I wasn't dead. Well, yeah, you were dead. But now you're alive. And when you're dead, you're going to be alive. Well, how can I be dead and be alive? That's God. You be dead in the body and alive in the spirit. What's he tell Moses here? You're going to fail, but you're going to succeed. You're going to think you failed. But I already know the end goal. I have a plan for that failure. And when we view things in the proper perspective, which is trying to view things through the lens of how God sees things, then we'll start defining our successes and failures much differently. My failure might actually be a victory. And if I'm being obedient to my calling, it will be. You know, a lot of times I rewatch these videos and I think that they're a failure. I think, well, what was I doing there? What was that look on my face? Man, I sound horrible. Why am I, what am I just don't even need to do this. People are going to see this and they're going to think I'm a joke. And while I view that as a failure, I promise you, I'm not doing this so you can look at my pretty face. Because I understand I don't have a pretty face. I'm doing this because this is part of my calling. God called me to do this. I don't know why. I don't know where this goes. I don't know where it leads. I know that, you know, a lot of times again, it's just human nature. You look and see how many people's watched the video, viewed the video, or whatever, and you think, why am I even bothered sometimes? But then God reveals a verse like this to you, which says, even though you're going to think you failed, you won. You thought you lost, but I promise you, you won. Because I used your failure to make a difference in other people. Failure is part of life, and failure is an important part of life, because without failure, we don't know what it means to succeed. Some of our greatest inventions came after a lot of failure. Some of our greatest victories come after a lot of failures. When God calls us to share the gospel with someone, odds are they're not going to accept Christ the minute we share the gospel. That would be, I bet we'd share the gospel a lot more if we thought that, if we knew automatically when I share it, they're going to accept it. Man, they're going to get saved right then. Doesn't happen that way. That's just not the way it works. But when we do those things, we're not failing because we're being obedient. And God will use that obedience for His glory. What does that mean? I don't know what it means to each and every person. All I know is that when we do it, we say, hey, we're being obedient, and we turn it over to God. And God will use that. He will spin that and weave that together for the good of maybe just one person. Maybe it's yourself that is for the good of. But most of the time, it's for the good of others. And we won't know what difference that made in this life. But we can know that we were obedient and that it will make a difference. So, whether you succeed or whether you fail, my prayer is that we are all obedient to the calling. And we don't let those excuses, and we'll continue to talk about these because Moses has got more. We don't let those excuses that we concoct in our head keep us from being obedient. Because victory, again, here's the other part. Here's the cool part. Victory is promised. We may not experience it in this lifetime, but victory is guaranteed. God bless you. Have a great day.